Hey guys, how's it going? I think we are live unless I clicked the wrong button, but Colin seems to still be here. So I wanted to introduce you guys to Colin. YouTube channel is Colin's Corner, new booktube channel, but you've probably seen him in the booktube communities and the discords and stuff for quite some time, I think. But Colin, do you want to like maybe introduce yourself and let them know what they can find on your channel, maybe as an
Yeah,
intro?
sure. So my name is Colin, if you couldn't deduce that from the name. So as Theo kind of alluded to, I wouldn't consider myself like a lurker. I've been participating in a lot of communities for the last couple of years in discords and people's comments, but it's always kind of been in the back of my mind to start a channel and just talk to more people
Yeah.
about books. So I finally took the leap, and I'm glad I did because it's such an awesome community to be a part of. And
Yeah. Yeah.
um, I just wanted to kind of create my own little space in it and
Mhm.
be able to have a space where I can express my thoughts. And I think I'm having a lot of fun so far, so that's the important thing.
Good, man. Your videos are dope too. You seem like
I
you know what you're
appreciate
doing.
it.
Have you ever done videos or podcasts or anything like that before? Like,
No, so I haven't.
hey
And
Jane, by the way.
it's Hi, yeah, hi Jane. Good morning to you. It's 7:30 for me.
Yeah.
But no, I don't have any experience in any type of like podcasting, audio, visual, or anything. And
Yeah.
I think the videos are turning out good, but there's a learning curve for me at least in terms of feeling comfortable
Yeah.
in
Oh, there
front of
sure
the
is.
camera.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it seems like you have a knack for it too, which is good. Some people don't and they grow into it. Yeah, yours have been awesome. I was just rewatching your review for Jade City because I'm getting kind of hyped for it. People are excited for me to read it, and so I want to. Jane says to bring the dad jokes. I think that's a pretty funny segment at the end of that. How did that come about? So if you guys don't know, at the end of Colin's videos, not to put pressure on you to continue this up, but people do like it. He ends with a joke and then he follows it up the next video for kind of the answer or the punchline or whatever. So how did you like, why did you do that? Was that your daughter telling you to do that, or was that
No,
just
I love bad jokes or dad jokes. It's kind of been like in the family. I'm fortunate to have a lot of family members that have what I consider a good sense of humor. But
yeah.
my grandpa on my dad's side of the family, he is the king of puns, and that kind of rolled over into like, we can't go to a family gathering over there without three or four just puns being broken off by somebody in the family. And so that's just always kind of been a part of me. And I thought like it would be a fun way to kind of get people involved video to video and
I
maybe
like
have
it.
a little bit of something to look forward to, you know what I mean? Like for the next
I
one.
like it. I
So
like
it
it.
just kind of adds a fun spin to things, I think.
Yeah, man. So on the book side of things, what are you reading right now? So what did you finish? I like to do this. What did you just finish? What are you reading right now? And what are you looking forward to? What book are you looking forward to pick up? What's up, Kevin?
So, hey, Kevin, how's it going, man? And Jane, if people like the dad jokes, they're not going anywhere. Not
Keep them
to
coming, man.
to go back to that, but yeah, if people enjoy them, I'll keep them around. I think it's fun. But
Yeah, man.
so to answer the question, I just finished the Light Fantastic, which is the second
Nice.
Discworld book.
That's
I
the
finished
second
that.
in publication order. So did
Yeah,
you
in
read
chronological order.
Color of Magic, I think, was the
I
first
did.
one?
Yep, yep,
Cool.
that's it.
Okay.
So I
Okay.
read the first two, and I finished that yesterday, and I also read the first chapter of Dark Matter.
Okay. Right.
Um,
Yeah, that's right.
so you're
You liking Dark Matter so far?
so yeah, I mean the first chapter was about like 30 pages long, and I think like so it's first person,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
it took a turn like right in the first chapter. I was like, whoa, this is like kind of getting crazy already.
Yeah.
And it's kind of my first sci-fi. I have some sci-fi books, but I've mainly
Yeah.
just been reading the last couple years a lot of King
Right.
and a lot of just fantasy. So
Right.
Blake Crouch, I want to get into. I have that, and I also own Upgrade. But so I just finished Light Fantastic, and now I'm on Dark Matter, and I don't know what I'm going to fit in after Dark Matter, but one that I'm definitely excited for, which I think you might have just started, is Ship
Mm.
of Magic.
Just started it. Yeah. I read basically the prologue so far because
Okay.
I've been getting trolled a little bit. I keep putting it on my TBR. It's the one that never quite I never quite get to it in the month, which is ridiculous because it's so big that I can't just be like, oh, I'll get to it. Like I need to like start it in the beginning of the month or close to, and then whatever else I can fit in, I need to. So I've prioritized it. I've promised that I'll be picking that up. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So
far,
I'm
so good.
actually, you enjoy it so far?
Yeah, yeah. Writing's
I mean,
beautiful. Hob is. I'm a little confused. Like at the beginning, the prologue, you're on this island, like you're following some pirates and stuff. Like you're like, what? And then there's a little bit of a glimpse into some magic and some under
okay.
sea stuff at the very beginning. So super confusing. Not sure what's going on, but I'm enjoying it. What's up, Cal?
Yeah.
How's it going, man? Yeah,
How's it going, Cal? So yeah, I'm starting a channel read along with the live ship traders with Ben over at Books with
that's right.
Bengus Con. We're going to be starting that in April, so I'm excited.
Nice.
I've read Forestier last year over the summer. I read those three, and I'm actually rereading it right now, just on audio
Nice.
because I wanted to visit Fitz again. So I'm
Yeah.
excited to move forward in Realm of the Elderlings, and it'll be really cool to
Me
like
too.
discuss that with I guess you, because you're going to be simultaneously I guess reading it and with Ben.
It kind of happened coincidentally that because I've been delayed in getting to it, I'll be overlapping with you guys, I'm hoping, as well as Matt on books is going to be doing some Realm of the Elderlings read-alongs and stuff. And
Okay.
I think he's starting in April, like later in the next month or two. And so I'll be overlapping with you guys and with that read along. And actually, coincidentally, Ben is going to be hopefully my next guest on Fireside Fridays. So
Cool.
welcome to Fireside Friday, guys. This is Colin for those of you that just joined. Go show him some love, new channel, good content, and we'll make our way through here as we chat. You need to read Farseer first. So did I misunderstand? Have you not read Farseer?
No, I read Forestier
You
last
have.
summer, and I'm actually
Gotcha.
rereading it on audio right now. So
Gotcha.
a
Okay,
lot of
perfect. So
Forestier happening.
you have read it. Okay,
Yeah.
good. Cool. You're not jumping too far ahead. What's up, Josh? How's it going? Happy
Hey, Josh.
Friday, here to show support for all the book enjoyers. Thanks, man. I
That's one of
appreciate you being
my
here.
that's one of my lifelong friends right there.
Awesome.
Josh,
Awesome.
yeah.
Perfect. Yeah, tell Theo he needs to read more Kings. So I do, if you can see a lot of the Kings kind of all down here and a little bit up there. No, that's Brandon Sanderson, all down here as well. I have a lot. I've read a bunch and I haven't read even more. So I think the next one I'll pick up, I'm always confused on what to pick up. Part of me wants to jump into the Dark Tower. Part of me wants to read some of the big ones first. I need to reread The Stand because I read like the majority of it a couple years ago, quite a few years ago now. But I did most of it on audio during a time where I was commuting a lot to work, and so it was hours.
How is the audio for The Stand?
It's not bad, but as you can imagine, it's a long book, so it's like 50 or 60 hours. So
Okay, yeah.
I got like two-thirds. I got like halfway through, and then I took a bit of a break, got about two-thirds of the way through, and then never finished it. So stupid. I mean, I'm gonna go back and just read it with my eyeballs and try and speed through it. My wife is actually reading it, but it's taking her some time because she's fitting it in some other stuff as well. We both just finished Kindred. While she's reading Kindred, she's finishing it. I just finished Kindred, as well as The Road. And actually, the next video that'll come out on my channel on the weekend is going to be a review of The Road because I thought it was extremely moving and powerful and unique, and I just wanted to kind of get my thoughts out about it. So that's what I just finished. Right now I'm reading Ship of Magic, but also finishing up Clash of Kings. And the next book I'm going to reach for after I finish Ship of Magic, which is going to take a while because it's like 50,000 pages, is probably Jade City. My patron pick.
Awesome.
People wanted me to get to Jade City, and I'm going to. So yeah, Buddy reads all the way with Ben. Edie, soon. In fact, I'm starting to plan out. These are getting more and more popular, and I'm having a blast with them. I think I'm going to keep them up, and I got a couple people lined up. I have Cal, cover to cover Cal, who is a booktuber and an author. I'm going to have him on just to get to know him a little bit better. And Evie, I'm circling back to you, I promise. Hey, man, how's it going?
I've like been introduced to so many content creators via this form of booktube, and like you said, I mean, you upload them after, and that's how I catch most of them. It's hard to catch, set aside 2 hours
we
to
were
catch
talking,
these live.
It's hard for people to make these all the time. And so I was telling Colin that you'd be surprised, maybe not, but you'd be surprised at how many people actually watch them on the replay and comment and message me and stuff. And oh, it was so funny when you guys were talking about this or that or whatever.
Yeah.
So Yeah, it's sometimes it's like you want people to join and participate, show some love, and kind of hang out, ask questions, whatever. But it's always cool when people watch stuff later on, as they make coffee or as they work out, throw it on in the background,
Yeah.
and just kind of listen to the chat. I love doing that too. I wish I had more time to watch everybody. How do you keep up?
Preach.
How do you keep up
Evie,
with
yes.
everything?
This is a John Mayer hoodie. He is my favorite all-time musician.
Really, my wife loves
Yes.
John Mayer. Interesting.
Yeah,
Cool.
love John
Very
Mayer.
cool.
I'm going to see him March 18th.
Right on. Where? Like
Solo
nearby,
tour.
or you? Cool.
Pittsburgh,
Cool.
yeah.
Cool. That's awesome. Good eye, Evie.
Yeah, great eye. Because you couldn't see the John Mayer down here. But so here's the thing. It's funny. I was just talking in Jimmy at the Fantasy Network's Discord yesterday to a bunch of people in one of the channel servers. I don't know how people read as much.
So here's the thing. Let me say this.
Balance. Like, how do you?
I was thinking about this the other day, and I literally was like struggling to finish. I lost a bunch of. I didn't lose footage, but I did. I lost some footage. I had to re-record stuff. I ended up editing for hours this video. This was my reaction to 1-star reviews.
I watched some of that. I didn't get to watch all of it.
There's a lot of editing that goes into that, and of course I try and make it, because for me it's quality over quantity. I want to spend some time editing something that's fun to watch, that I can go back and watch and have a good laugh and stuff. So I spend longer editing than I probably should. And right near the end, one of my main clips in the video of me talking just disappeared. And I was like, oh my God, I just spent hours editing this thing.
Yeah.
So I had to stay up
and
do it so I could release it. And I was thinking to myself how much more time I would have to read if I wasn't stressing about not stressing, but planning the next video, catching up with other content that I want to watch myself from friends like you. It's crazy how much time. Are you surprised with the time it takes to make and edit a video?
So I
didn't know going in how much work it would take.
I'm not gonna lie, it's part of the reason. So there's two things that kind of held me back from making a channel. It's always been simmering on the back burner since I kind of got into
a lot of people say that. A lot of people say that.
It's true. And and the reason for that is because so first of all, finding booktube has been I know there's a lot of people are releasing some videos now. There was that article that just came out about is reading changing, this, that, or the other. I can honestly say that discovering booktube has been the best thing that has ever happened to my reading career, bar none, because of the people that I met. And not only that, just the people, the live discussions that are around books and all the different viewpoints that I'm being exposed to that I never would have if I was in a lot of these books. I would have a blast reading on my own, but I think about them and have such awesome discussions, even just in Discords.
So it's this fine line, I find, not to interrupt you, but it brings a thought to my mind, because it's this fine line of reading used to be a very introspective and individual thing, right? And you read by yourself, you get cozy with a book and you think about it and you take your time with it. And then we also, on the flip side, have people that I think on the whole probably enjoy reading with other people and enjoy discussing what they're reading, because they don't get to all the time. So some people appreciate reading on their own. Some people need that interaction. And then there's that kind of middle area where it's I want to read a little bit more alone. I want to take my time a little bit more, but I also want to keep up with the discussions and read fast enough, right, to contribute and add value to those chats. And also the FOMO, right, of that missing out of oh man, all these people are reading this book that I really wanted to read, but I'm enjoying this other book so much and it's taking me a week to read it. How do you it's tough to balance, right?
I know. I need to embody some of Alan's lack of FOMO.
Alan doesn't give a shit.
He's averse to FOMO, but no, I mean, so
he also loves reading with people, and he derives so much joy from that too. So it's, how do you balance that, right? Not caring about all that stuff, but then wanting to jump in and plan for that. It's very difficult.
It's hard. And so what I don't want this channel to become is something that I resent. I don't want, I don't want to resent reading, and I don't want to resent creating content because I feel like I have to do this, that, or the other, or I have to talk about this, that, or the other. And so on top of trying to strike a balance just between like life and reading and keeping up with all the content that I want to keep up with in reading, now I've thrown this into the fold. But when it comes down to it, like, I love to read, I love to talk
Yeah.
about books, and I want to, because the other thing I get caught up with is now that I'm in all these communities, I kind of just assume that everybody reads, or that if I talk about
Yeah.
this book, people aren't going to care because so many people talk about it. But then I have to realize that so many people don't read
Yes.
regularly.
Yeah.
And if they find my
Most don't.
video,
I think
right.
most don't, right?
And if
Which is
somebody
crazy.
finds a video that I made that gets them into reading, because that happened for me. Like, obviously, I found Daniel Green, I found people
Yeah.
like
So
Jake
tell
wrote
me
the
your
Bookish
story.
Drummer.
Tell me the bookish community origin story. How did it happen? When did you find booktube? For a lot of people, it was around the pandemic. People were isolated. They're like looking around for shit to do. They see the books and they're
Yeah.
like, I haven't read in 3 years. Maybe I'll pick up a book. And then the rabbit hole of YouTube happens and we all
Yeah.
meet each other. So what's the story? How did it happen?
I've always, in like, in my heart, I've always known that I was a reader. I used to read a lot when I was, younger, and I fell away from it, got older, teenage years,
Got a
early college
life and
years, got a
stuff.
life. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I just was at the beach. Just a couple of years ago, I walked into a bookstore and I bought 11/22/63. Don't know why.
Really?
Yep. I just picked it up.
So you went for this huge fat doorstop Stephen King book. I wonder what drew you to that. Do you remember what drew you to that? Was it the cover? Was it the Stephen King you wanted to get?
So it was the cover, and like, also I just like, I was looking around for like a half an hour and I was like, screw it. Here, this one. I mean, I didn't know what I was,
Yeah.
and like, that was the start of everything. I was like, and that's how I found one of the first channels that I found was Jake at the Bookish Drummer, because he talked a lot of Stephen King. So I've been following him forever. And then the first like year or so, maybe half a year, was a lot of me. I didn't know what genre I liked. I just knew I loved 11/22/63. So then I was just digging and like,
which is difficult because that's kind of an odd. It doesn't really fit into a genre. Like, it's kind of a portal urban fantasy. There's some horror elements embedded within if you've read it and stuff like that, but it's not really a horror book. It's a bit of a thriller, a bit of a mystery. There's a romance in it. Like, how the hell do you know what you like, right? From that
right.
book,
And I didn't. I had read that. A couple of my earliest books that I found, I read Silent Patient. Do you remember when that book was really popular?
Yeah.
It was a psychological thriller.
Yeah, I have it up.
Really good.
Name Michael Levis or something. He's a
yeah, yeah. So those were some of the first couple books, and then like,
hey Tori,
I just kind of kept digging, and it led me to people like, Jimmy, who I've been, a member of his Discord and his community for a long time. And
right on.
then all of these, live shows started happening and discussions, and I found people like Philip and AP, and I don't want to leave anybody out, but that's kind of how I got brought into the fantasy aspect and the sci-fi aspect of booktube. So
so what did you pick up when you wanted to get into the fantasy discussion and start reading with the fantasy crew? Like, what did you pick up to get into that?
My top two so funny enough, the first thing that I went to is because I had this, I'm kind of an addictive personality type person.
Okay.
So I don't know if you saw my bookshelf tour, but I have an entire bookshelf now dedicated to Stephen King. And
it happens to a lot of people.
so it started with The Dark Tower. I found I don't know if you've ever seen the horror show channel, Jaime and Fuego. He made a ridiculous 19-book list of how to read The Dark Tower and like all of the, tie-in novels. And so that, like, The Dark Tower was really the first big full fantasy series that I read, and I did his whole like 18-book list because I wanted to read more King, and I also wanted to try The Dark Tower. So I got into fantasy in a very unorthodox series, kind of,
Yeah, I would probably argue that that's correct. What books did you read? Well, I guess it's a long list. So you read a bunch of books to prep you for Dark Tower to make sure you're reading some of the ones that were important. Is that what you mean?
I definitely want to preface this by saying, and he says it too, it's not necessary to do that to like
Okay, cool.
understand the Dark Tower, but there's a lot of tie-in characters and stuff like that, and he just did the research and compiled a list of how you could read them in chronological order and kind of get a little bit of everything. But
Nice.
so that's kind of what I did because it was killing two birds with one stone. I wanted to read more King anyways, and I wanted to read the Dark Tower. So that I read, and then the first kind of real big fantasy series I read was Farseer last year.
Okay. Yeah. My
Um,
my entrance into fantasy after kind of discovering booktube and stuff and getting back into reading my own stuff was I think Mistborn.
okay,
Mistborn really
I
got me like into it, and I was like, wow, like that was a really fun experience. And I forgot how much I enjoyed fantasy, and I didn't realize how I wouldn't consider Mistborn complete adult fantasy or the most sophisticated of fantasy, but it reminded me of how actually good fantasy can be. And I say that
yeah,
because you typically get the connotation of like, oh, fantasy, that's only swords and dragons, and it can't be serious, or it can't have romance in it, or it can't have deep themes in it, or it can't do things that literature is supposed to do, but which is crap. And so it actually gave me kind of the I don't know, the I found that passion again for reading stuff that I enjoyed, and realized that fantasy could be uh, really good if done properly. Like there's really good fantasy out there that rivals the best of any literature, right? Like I'm reading Robin Hobb, and I mean, if she wasn't writing fantasy, I mean, she could write damn near anything, and it would
yeah.
be considered like top tier literature. I think she could. So yeah, Mistborn was my kind of gateway. I think it was the case for Petrick as well, if I'm not mistaken. So a
Have
lot of
you
people,
read
as
a
Wheel
lot
of
of
Time, and
Sanderson?
I've read I've read The Emperor's Soul, I've read Mistborn Era 1, and I read Elantris way back in the day. Don't really remember it. So the next Sanderson book I want to read is actually Elantris, and
Okay,
then continue through the Cosmere. I don't know if I'll read Era 2 before Stormlight. I think I want to jump to Stormlight and get through that stuff. The book actually I'll read after Elantris is Tress in the Emerald Sea. I really want to read that one. I've heard
okay.
heard good things about
Is it
that.
is that a standalone?
It's a standalone. It's one of his secret projects. It's the secret project number 1 that was released. I got the ebook. And what's up, David? Yeah, Mistborn was a lot of people's entry point for sure. So that one's, I think, secret project number 1, and you don't have to know too much. I think going in, there's a character that's prominent in the Cosmere like lore, but other than that, you can read it without really knowing too much, which is kind of cool.
I've not
So,
read any Sanderson at all yet.
oh, you haven't read anything by him?
No,
Interesting. Are you
I
planning
have.
to?
I
What's
I
the
am,
plan?
but I have so many like there's just so many series that I haven't read yet for the first time. Like I
That's
just
my
read
whole thing.
it's crazy. I just read Lord of the Rings for the first like I read The Hobbit when I was in high school, I think, but I
Yeah.
just read Lord of the Rings for the first time the end of last year. Like I
I
just
haven't
read a
read Lord
Game
of
of
the
Thrones.
Rings. That was
See,
one that
like
I
we're
wanted to get to last year. I promised I was just like, I got the nice like edition behind me. It's all pretty and stuff. I haven't. I know I will. I just like,
right. Um,
I'm
I
catching
haven't
up
read
on
a Game of Thrones
everything.
yet.
Yeah.
Like I want to do more Realm of the Otherlings, and yeah, eventually I want to get to Sanderson. I want to get to John Gwynn. Like there's so I don't know how you fit all this
So
in.
you're kind of like me about a year or two ago, where you were like you were just like discovering all of the new stuff, all of the like classic stuff that people talk about. I mean, I'm reading through Game of Thrones, A Song of Ice and Fire right now for my first time. Like,
Yeah,
like, but I'm enjoying it. And some people are like, man, if I could only just go back and read that shit for the first time,
yeah,
like, so I have people that are jealous, and I have some people going, what? Like, I can't believe you've never read this stuff, right? So I'm like,
yeah. Same here. Um, Evie,
Sanderson hater. He doesn't,
I
not
don't.
everybody loves Sanderson. And even people that appreciate some of his books have criticism, and can kind of point out the reasons why they might not like all of his books. But he's a good accessible point of fantasy, I think, that for a lot of
That's
people.
the most. That's the most frequent thing that I hear about him is that he's accessible to a lot. Although he does have complex magic systems, and I don't want to talk out
Yeah.
the side of my neck because I've never read anything by him, but
Right.
it seems to be that a lot of people found fantasy via Sanderson in some way, or were introduced to him because they were Wheel of Time fans or something like
Yeah.
that. Um, but
I think the
I
genre owes a lot of credit to him for sure, to bring a lot of people in, which is good.
right, yeah. So one thing are you an audiobook listener?
Yes. So more and more, okay. I'm an adult. Like I got a mortgage to pay. Like I got fucking dishes to clean and stuff. So
Right.
I can't spend your dad. I mean, like you can't sit down for 2 or 3 hours and read as much as I would like to, and as fast as that would be. So I do rely on audiobooks for, it's gotten to be about 50% of my listening, to be honest with you.
Some
Because the time that I have to sit down and read usually is at night. In the morning, sometimes I get caught up with stuff. I start work early, or I just do other stuff before I work, even though I'm up early. And then at night, I try and read, and I'm out at within an hour, I'm hitting the pillow and I'm out. So the audio booking in the middle of the day is really what I rely on now more than ever. So
Yeah. Well, the
yeah,
reason that I brought that up is because for a lot of series, and this doesn't work for everything, but I've been doing a lot of immersive reading, so like listening alongside reading, especially at night.
yeah.
I highly like, and I said this in some of my videos, my top 6 influential read videos. The Andy Serkis narration for Lord of the
Oh, I
Rings,
have that queued up, Colin. I bought that stuff. I have it queued up.
unbelievable.
So okay, you read it for the first time. Am I
Yes,
correct on that? Okay. So
yes.
as a first time reader, can I do that immersively? Like, or does it take away from the experience not reading it fully? I guess immersively is reading
Uh,
with your eyes too. So
I did it immersively, but I think so I'm also not super picky, but I think one of the main reasons that it worked for me is because I started it immersively. I didn't like pick up the audiobook in the Two Towers and have already created these characters' voices in
yeah,
my
right.
head that don't mix with what the narrator's doing.
Yeah.
I just started it with Andy Serkis, and it was like, because I'm not a super imaginative reader, like picturing things in my head type of thing, but
I'm not
the way he
really.
delivers his performance is unbelievable to me.
Have you seen the behind the scenes footage of him acting out some of these scenes? He's sweating, he's crawling around, he's so
No.
into it. The production, just like the commitment to that delivery is incredible. You
You
should
can
go
hear
just
it.
search on, yeah, you could, yeah, absolutely. So I can only imagine how it comes across when you're reading and like listening to it. Because just watching him, I'm like, holy crap, like this, I hope this guy's getting paid.
Yeah.
It's like he's doing I
So,
mean, he's part of the whole Lord of the Rings thing now anyway, but
right.
yeah.
Yeah, audiobooks don't work at all for some people, and that's kind of why I
No.
asked. Like some people are just like, and that's I get it. Like it just, if it doesn't work for you, then it doesn't work for you.
Yeah, I got to get to that one for sure. Audiobooks are interesting because for a lot of people say that they can read faster than the audiobook, and I think I'm in that category. But without audiobooks, I wouldn't be able to get through as much.
Yes.
So it's one of those things where I kind of forced myself to get good at it. Like I can't listen to them at like 3 or 4 times speed, but
Right.
I crank them up if I have to, and they definitely have helped me get through books for sure.
Yeah, there's also certain series that I just decided like I'm not going to read that one on audio. I want to read this one. I prefer reading physically over
Right.
everything. But like you
I do
said,
too.
it's just like, I'm a dad, I work, I am in school part-time. Like it's not possible to read as much as I want to read without
Sweet.
the assistance of audiobooks.
Yeah. Yeah. No, yeah. So Kevin says you don't really have. So on the immersive reading side, because this is something I'm exploring more and more. Because right now, I've tried reading immersively, and I find it hard to match that speed to get into a good rhythm. Do you have a Kindle, and do you use the immersive reading feature?
I actually I don't. Well,
Okay,
I
I
don't
don't
use the
either.
feature. I have a Kindle, but I don't use the feature.
Okay.
And so Lord of the Rings is one of the only immersive reads I've done. And maybe I didn't think about this till you brought this up. Maybe the main reason that I stuck to it is because I have the Alan Lee illustrated editions.
Okay.
So I was
Okay.
kind of just like chilling and reading. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like
Right.
I was like
Yeah.
reading along with it, but also just kind of chilling,
Yeah.
while I
Yeah.
was reading. So it was less mentally taxing, I guess. And I do it a lot at night when I'm tired, but I still want to read. So I
Yeah.
can still, get an extra 20 pages in or whatever.
Yeah. I find that once I get tired reading, like on page, I switch to audio for the last little bit because then I can kind of like get ready for bed and just kind of chill, turn my brain off. And then very quickly, I need to just shut it off because I haven't listened to the last like 10 minutes. Right. So at that point, I just go to bed. But yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. I'll pick up the circus audios for an immersive read when I next read Lord of the Rings. Yeah, I can not sure why I haven't read them yet. I think I just haven't prioritized them. There were some people reading them and a couple of people reading them for the first time earlier and also last year, but I just didn't jump on it because I just had other stuff to read. But
Yeah. Oh, one of the other things is like I knew I could only read it once. Or I could only read it for the first time once.
once,
So
yeah,
I kept
yeah.
putting that off, you know what I mean?
There's some deep down psychology behind that too. I think I do that with series and I do that with longer books. Like books I really enjoy. It's weird. I'll get to the end of a series and I'll kind of take my time with that last book. I'll put down the last book for a while. Like I just it's not because I'm not enjoying it. It's just because I've been reading the series for however long. And now I'm getting to the end and I kind of just want to like save it a little bit. It's not a deliberate thing, but it just kind of happens sometimes. But
Yeah.
yeah, almost always go a bit faster than the audio. Matching is a struggle. So the reason why I ask that is because I have a Kobo. I don't have a Kindle, and so I don't have the immersive reading function. And what I mean by that, for people that don't know, is when you have the Audible version and you have the Kindle ebook, there's an immersive reading function in some Kindles where you can like bounce and the words bounce kind of like karaoke and it highlights as you go and it kind of knows where you stop and stuff. So no matter what you pick up, it's kind of there. I don't have that, and I think I would find that feature really helpful because it's hard to match the right speed. Either the audio will go faster, and I think it would be hard to find the speed anyway. But
Yeah.
just seeing the cursor, I think, would help me a lot. Because if I skip a line or if I miss a word, I have to scroll back and oh, I found it. But then the audio is keep going, right? So it's like
Yeah.
it's kind of hard, but yeah, yeah,
I've never used the feature. I actually didn't know about it. So I'm gonna have to look
yeah,
into that because I do own a Kindle and I do like reading on the Kindle.
yeah.
Much better than
Yeah.
like an iPad or a screen.
Yeah. So do you prefer paper over the Kindle? You do, right?
I prefer physical over any
Everything else
form of
pretty
reading. And it almost doesn't make sense because the Kindle is such like in
it's
terms of
amazing.
the strain on my eyes,
Yeah.
because that's the reason I didn't like reading on the iPad was because I didn't have the stamina to read for 2 hours on my iPad, but I
Right.
can do it on the Kindle. With something within the screen makes that so that I can do it.
Yeah.
But I just prefer I don't know, there's just something about a classic physical book, the feel, the smell, the whatever it is that I think I'll always prefer that, but it's not
I think
always the
so.
most, feasible option.
Do you think younger people growing up now will get to a point where they strictly prefer ebooks? Do you think that's going to be kind of a nostalgia thing for people our age that like really because there's a resurgence of the leather bound, right? The custom whatever, the deluxe edition, the illustrate. Like we like
Yeah,
the nice sexy shit on the shelves because we grew up seeing our parents with libraries and nice books and going to the
right.
library and having these encyclopedias everywhere, just books, right? But
Yeah.
younger people, I don't know, I think they don't really care as much about the stuff on the shelf as we do.
I think that inevitably that's going to be true for a lot of people, but
Yeah.
like you said, I mean, and I was fortunate to grow up in a household that had books in it and
Yeah.
had my mom was always reading for pleasure.
Yeah.
So I was around it, and I think that, my daughter is around it. I read to her. She reads on her own now, which is amazing. Like I think that it's a part of her. And she
Yeah.
might, the same thing, who knows? I mean, the same thing might happen to her that happened to me. Like, I fell away from it for a while, but deep down, like, I knew that reading books was another form of entertainment that was
Yeah.
available.
Yeah.
And so I came back to it eventually. And hopefully, it
You can
doesn't die
instill
out
some of that. Yeah.
completely. Right.
You know, so what happened with me was I would read growing up, obviously. I know how to read. And then I got to a point like you where later on in high school, through college, whatever, you know, you're reading so much heavy academic stuff. Not everybody does, but or you go through this phase as a young adult, reading nonfiction, right? Reading business books, right? When you're starting your career, like whatever people read. And then
Yeah.
you steer away from the reading for fun thing. And I got to a point where I felt really guilty reading for fun because I was like, well, that's taking time away from, you know, XYZ, or I should be reading this for school and I'm not, or whatever. Then I got to kind of postgraduate high level analytical finance stuff where I was reading like stupid shit. And then literally after like 4, 5, 6 years of that, like I couldn't read for pleasure anymore. Didn't even cross my mind. But through this whole time, I would always stop in at a bookstore. I would always look at what's there. Right? Have you ever done that? Like you haven't read a book in a year, but you'd pop by the bookstore and you're just like looking at stuff. Like why? You just window shopping
That's
books.
literally how I acquired 11/22/63.
You just pop in and what I would do too, and a lot of people are guilty of this, is you'd buy a book and you put it on the shelf and then you don't read it for 2 years.
Yep.
So, you know, it's hard. It's hard to, yeah, yeah. Sun Eater, yeah,
No,
Sun Eater would be good for immersive reading. Yeah.
so
Yeah.
I was gonna actually ask you.
Yeah.
Like I alluded to, I've not read much sci-fi at all, but
Okay.
I do want to. I own those couple of Crouch books. I own the Red Rising, the first 3 books in Red Rising. Have you read a lot of
Okay.
sci-fi?
You know what? No, I'm not super versed in sci-fi. My biggest foray into and probably most successful entry into sci-fi was with the Sun Eater series by Rockio, which I guess Kevin was just talking about. So that one was kind of my big sci-fi thing that I've done recently. Other than that, I'm limited to sort of pseudo sci-fi or sci-fi thrillers like Blake Crouch. Really, Crouch reads more like a thriller and not very hard sci-fi. I've read Andy
Okay.
Weir. You know, I've read stuff like that. I've read some other sci-fi. I've read some older books and stuff too, which I can't remember. I think I read an Alistair Reynolds or something at some point. I think he's sci-fi,
Okay.
right? Can't remember. But aside from that, no. And I have read, Tori's going to hate me, but I have 5 of the Red Rising books up there, which I think are what's out now. And I haven't read them yet. And I want to. Aside from that, I have the Expanse series, and I was just watching a video by Ben,
Yep.
who was gushing about the Expanse, and I really want to read that. I think I just wanted to give myself some time between Sun Eater and another sci-fi series, so I'm going to pick up some standalone sci-fis, and I'm probably also going to do Red Rising as a priority.
Okay.
What about you? What would you want to pick up on the sci-fi front?
So first of all, Matt, I want to touch on Matt's comment
Yeah,
there. I
yeah,
have not figured out. I tried to when I first got my Kindle. I would like to figure out how to attach my library cards to
yeah.
my Kindle because I couldn't figure out how to do it. So I just thought that you couldn't. And then someone the other day just told me like, "Oh, dude, you could just." I'm like, "Really?" So
Yes, so you
I
can
need to
get just
figure
a
it out.
library card for I have a library, so I live in Canada and have a library card for the what for the kind of district like near me. But I also have a library card for where is it? Let me just see where it's from. Can't remember where it's from. It is from Broward County, somewhere in the States. I have no idea where Broward County is.
Okay.
Florida, I think. I'm not sure. So and I got this tip from someone's video, and I'll post him. Maybe I'll just make a mention of him because he has really, really good videos. Um, Dylan Johns, I believe his name is
Okay.
Dylan Johns. I just connected with him. We've become friendly. I might have him on a Fireside Friday chat, but he has, look him up. I'll post it in here. I believe, let me just type it in here. I believe it's Dylan. I believe it's Johns with an S. Go check
Yeah,
him
because
out.
I
He has some really good Libby and Kindle content.
okay.
And he'll show you how to link up your library card to Libby, and it's helped me out a lot. And I have 2 library cards, and that way I'm able to, you know, if one is checked out or whatever, I have
Yeah.
another county or another whatever to browse through. Because usually it's like stupid, like you want to check out Game of Thrones, and there's like 40 people waiting, and it's going to take you 3 months to get to it. It's like,
Yeah.
well, what's the point? Like, you know, if I can't
No, I
read it, what's the
have.
point?
So I use the 2 apps that my library offers use for is Hoopla and
Okay,
Cloud Library. So I do
okay,
use those mainly for audiobooks though, because like I said, I don't like to read on my iPad.
yeah,
Um, So I have
Well,
been
Alicia
using them, but
says,
I
yeah,
need
it's
to.
Hoopla and Libby would be good apps to have for
Okay,
sure. Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, so
Um,
I'm using library stuff more than I ever have before. I still like to buy books. It's just I don't know. I still do, but I'm doing more ebooks now as well, and I'm also doing more library. So what I'll do is this. I often like to have the audiobook, like I said, as kind of a companion. So when I'm sitting down to read for an hour, whatever, and I got to get up now and cook for dinner or do the dishes or do some laundry,
yeah,
I like to continue reading. I don't necessarily want to switch always to a different book. So I'll put
yeah,
in my audio and I'll continue the same book. And so I'll usually get the audio from the library. If I already own the ebook or the hard copy, I'll just get the audiobook so I can continue for free. So I do that a lot. Is
yeah.
I'll get the
I do.
library. Yeah.
I do the same thing.
Yeah.
It's kind of
Why
helps
not?
chip away at it, especially for these. Well, I've heard not so great things about the narration for the live ship trader, so I'm not sure if I'll be doing it for
It's
live
not
ship.
it's not terrible. It's not great. The Robin Hobb stuff
That's
isn't great. But you know what? Like people say they don't like the Royce Roy Dotrice version or audible narration of Game of Thrones and A Song of Ice and Fire. I don't
okay.
mind it. It's like it helps me get through the books. These I mean, some of his characters are ridiculous and his
Yeah,
pronunciations can grate people, and some of his voices are a little bit like I wouldn't choose that voice, but it helps
right.
me continue with the story. And so if it's at all doable, it does add value for me. There are some times where I just can't stand the voice or I can't stand the cadence or the delivery. That happens rarely. Like it's rare that
Yeah.
I hate it enough where I just won't do it. David says there's something about the bookmark moving through. You know what's funny? I have a confession to make. Because I 100% agree with this. I have a confession to make. Sometimes what I'll do is I'll listen to the audiobook or I'll read the ebook and I'll have the hard copy on the shelf and I'll read a couple chapters and I'll go over to it and I'll move my bookmark and I'll just kind of plug it in there
Yep.
and I'll just look because then I can see when I glance at that book like where I am. I'm not reading the hardcover,
Yep.
but it's there with a bookmark in it like an idiot. So
I've
it's
done
just
that
something
too.
I do, right? Like
I've done
this
that
is
too.
weird. It's weird, man. Yeah,
Um,
books are weird.
to circle back to the sci-fi question,
Yeah.
I definitely I want to try Red Rising. I want to get into
Mhm.
some sci-fi for sure. And I know like there's obviously Dune. I own the first
I
two
read
Dune
Dune. I
books.
read Dune. I
Did
haven't
you
read the
enjoy
two.
it?
So I pre-ordered. So I don't know where it is. I have this copy that a lot of people show off, which is super
That's
sexy.
awesome. Yeah.
And I pre-ordered the next two. So I'm waiting to get
Okay.
these sexy copies in the next two to read those. So that's why I have it yet.
And then the
Soon.
next one that's a big sci-fi priority for me is Sun Eater because I've heard so many good things about a lot of that series. I don't
Yeah.
own any of the books. They hardly ever have them at Barnes and
No,
Noble when
they
I
it's
go.
that's a whole other conversation. But yeah, they're difficult. They're hard to find. You can find the ebooks or the Audible or whatever. And like Ben says, Samuel Rowkin does the Audible narration, and he's very good.
Okay.
He, honestly, I was kind of turned off at the beginning. I was like, he's I think he's British, and his voice for Hadrian, I was like, I didn't really vibe with it. And now I understand when people say that's him, like that's the voice, and that's just it. That's what you picture now. So
Yeah.
after the first book, I got hooked with his narration. So he's very good. Switched to comics and manga. Yeah. So literally after reading like academic stuff for so long, I actually think I'm not a doctor, I'm not whatever, but I think I got to a point where I had this weird like brain fog and this weird almost like I could like dyslexia when I was trying to read for pleasure. Like I couldn't read fiction the same way that I could read something else. It just wasn't working. And after a couple years, I just kind of got back into it and now I'm back in. I'm hooked, right? But for a long time I couldn't physically like cognitively like do it, which is bizarre.
That that kind of checks out because like I said, I'm also in school right now and
Yeah.
there's it's two different kinds of reading
Yeah.
that you're doing, especially if you're, in a writing class or
Yeah.
analyzing an article or something. I mean, or just textbook reading is different. It's a different style of at least for me it is. I read them differently than I do,
Yeah.
a book for fun. So
Sure. Yeah.
I can picture it being hard to, switch between that if you're so used to not doing the fiction, fun reading
Yeah.
for so long.
Yeah. David says you should try Ender's Game. It's short, profound, accessibly written, and it's a classic.
Okay.
I as much as I love David, I didn't really like Ender's Game. I would agree that I can appreciate it. It was fairly profound, heavy on themes, very interesting, very like, wow, like it's a good book, and I can
Am I
understand
incorrect
why.
in thinking that that's a book that like people read in business school? Like, is that
No, you're not. You're not incorrect on that. That one is like a lot of people read it in military context, in leadership training and classes because of its leadership themes and stuff, and how to lead and like what that means even. And
okay?
it's very interesting that way. It just read a little bit. It didn't do for me what I was hoping it would.
Okay.
And I think it reads a little bit, it doesn't even read young. Like, I don't even know how to explain it. It's just, you have this very young protagonist, and a lot is demanded of him. And he's supposed to be amongst another group of kids. This is all non-spoiler. The top, like, cognitive, like they're just the smartest kids that you could get. And they're the absolute best suited in the entire population for this task or for this training school. And so I understand that they're very capable young people, but it just read a little bit far-fetched for me, and I just couldn't really. It would have read better to me had they aged them up a little bit, which wouldn't really have worked for the story.
Okay.
So I think this is a book that, yeah, David's booing me. I know, buddy. I'm sorry. Um, this is one that I think a lot of people have nostalgia. Oh, hey, Dylan, I literally was just talking about you, man.
He
I
was.
directed people to your Libby and your Kindle content. Excellent channel. Mike's heard of Dune. I think it's one of his books that he enjoyed back in the day. I think, I'm not sure. Yeah, so it's one that a lot of people look back on with fond kind of nostalgia, thinking like, wow, that was an excellent book. I think if you read it for the first time as an adult, it might not quite hit you the same way.
Okay.
So hopefully David and I can still be friends, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
Don't mind
I
dirt
saw
sheets at all. Yeah, I don't either. Yeah.
David Slane asked what I'm in school for. I'm actually in school to
Yeah.
become an elementary school teacher. So
Awesome. Awesome.
yeah.
We need more teachers,
Yeah.
man. And whereabouts do you live in the States? Do you live in Pittsburgh?
I live east of
Near?
Pittsburgh. Yes.
Cool.
Yeah,
Cool.
about an
Awesome.
hour east of Pittsburgh. So
Cool.
yeah, it was
Maybe
I
he was booing you for being a teacher. Then. I don't think so. He was booing me. He was booing me long before that. So
no, it's funny. So I used to be in the carpenters union for a little while. I was an apprentice, and when I moved to where I am now, it was just too far away from many of the
yeah,
job sites. So I ended up, just kind of getting a job out here. I deliver pizzas now, and I'm in school.
yeah,
And the
on the
way that
grind.
all happened, I'm on the grind.
Yeah, yeah,
And my now wife, but fiance at the time, said to me one day, like, I think you'd be a really good teacher. Because she had
that's a
seen the
compliment.
way that I help, with my stepdaughter
Yeah,
around the house. I don't know why she said it the one day, but it's something, it just clicked. Like, I'm like, I can't stop thinking about it now. And I think you're right. So I kind of
that's
pursued
awesome.
that. And, you know, they say you're supposed to listen to your wife. So I
Happy
did.
wife, happy life. Yeah, exactly.
So that's how
uh,
that happened.
Background in anthropology. Caitlin says she has a background in anthropology and history, a lot of academic reading. Started reading fantasy because it wasn't something I could pick apart. Very interesting. See, I have this feeling, and I've talked about this with some people that are more versed in sci-fi. Again, I am apparently I am wrong about Ender's Game, and so for that, I forgive me.
Of
So
course
Mike knows what he's talking about. So forget. Yeah, who is this Theo
not.
guy? I know. Andrew, you know what? Listen, I don't know who invited you, but I'm glad you're here. It's fine. So yeah, I talked to a couple of people who are more versed in sci-fi and who've studied science in school. And I always am curious about how people that are heavy into the sciences and very academically inclined in those subjects can enjoy that stuff without picking it apart. And a lot of them say they can't. A lot of them say like it needs to really be on the nose, or it needs to really be good or accurate or whatever for them to mesh with it. And at the first sight of some inaccuracies or maybe something being kind of far-fetched, think like Andy Weir books and stuff like that. They're like, it's not really correct science, but like, could it happen? Sure, maybe. They can't really get into it. And so I'm always curious. I think people that study science and study all that kind of stuff would have an easier time, like Caitlin alluded to, enjoying fantasy and just kind of letting go. Is that how you read? Do you just let go? You're along for the ride. You don't pick things apart too much. You don't look for plot holes. You kind of just chill and read and have fun? Or do you like to dissect stuff?
So I like to discuss reasons for things, but not so much like dissect things, if that makes sense to you. Like I'm not trying to pick plot holes out and try not to like things. I think that like I don't know, for me, what I've experienced thus far in, my rekindled reading career is that a lot of it has to do with the author's talent to suspend my disbelief. If they can do
Yeah.
that, I don't ask as many questions and I just am along for the ride. And
Yeah.
Hobb has been able to do that. King has been able to do that. Martin with the Game of Thrones has been able to do that. Like I want to know what's happening in the world, but I don't want to wonder why it's okay that
Yeah.
that works.
Right.
If that makes
Right.
sense.
George R. R. Martin would like, so these books were the first books in not a long time, because I've enjoyed fantasy. I've gotten deep into like John Gwynne books, and I'll look up from reading them for a couple hours, being like, wow, like I was enjoying that. But George R. R. Martin was the first experience in a while where I would look up and like forget that I was in real life. I'm just fully in
Yes,
there.
same.
It all works. I literally forget about life, and I don't wake up. I look up and I'm like, holy shit, like I'm not in Westeros, like bizarre. So that was the first experience I've had in a while where I was fully in. Like, yeah.
Hey, we have some people really close. That's awesome.
Yeah,
To me at
totally.
least.
Yeah,
But
not me.
um, Martin, I said this in one of my videos. His ability to get me to want to just like I can't put the books down.
You just want to hang out there, like you just want
I
to know. Yeah,
It's
totally.
cliffhangers. It's like
I know.
chapter to chapter. I'm like, geez, like it just leaves so many characters on cliffhangers that I have to, even though like John was on a cliffhanger 3 chapters ago, and the next chapter after this is Arya, I have to like get to the next John chapter. So I'm just gonna keep reading. That's how Game of Thrones was for me.
Yeah, I've been having a blast with it. I can't believe it's taken this long to read it, but I'm having fun. What other books are you excited to get to? What other series do you have on the, not on the go, but what are you planning to read this year that you're most excited about? Any series, any read-alongs? We talked about a couple things.
Yes.
But
So yeah, obviously live ship to get further into Realm of the Elderlings. And I do want to continue with the Greenbone saga. I enjoyed Jade City.
Cool.
Definitely enough.
Maybe I'll catch up. Who knows?
Yeah, you might. Because I don't know when I'm going to move on, but I definitely am. And the next series that I'm the most excited about that I'm reading with my mom is the Dresden Files.
Nice. Have you read any Dresden at all?
2. I've read the first 2.
Okay.
So Full Moon and Stormfront so far.
Okay. What did you think so far? Because what did you think?
So I like Harry, and I like his whole attitude, his sarcasm, just the way he is. Like it clicks with me. I like his sense of humor. The first book was just kind of fun, I guess, and then in the second book, in Full Moon, I liked seeing how his relationship with like Murphy kind of morphed a little bit, and like it felt a little more serious. Like I know it takes. I've been around for a little while. I know it takes till changes to, you know what I mean. But I'm enjoying it already, and I'm also like, and I say this now, but I'm not super rushed to like fly through it. I'm glad to have like a series kind of going on. Just whenever I feel like I want to throw one in that's 200 or 300 pages, I'll do it. You know.
So that's exactly my my situation with Dresden. So I've read 9 books, I believe. I think the next one I'd be reading is book 10, and I can never remember the name. Haven't read one in a while. The last one I read was like early last year, so it's been a minute. But
Okay.
they're just comfort food. I put out my priority 2023 books and series, what I'm looking forward to, and getting back into Dresden is kind of, like I said, that palate cleanser, that comfort food that you could just throw on. Like you said, you don't have to really keep up too much. Just slide it in whenever, and you can kind of pick right back up. I will say, I'm in agreement with the majority where books up to 3 or 4, it kind of builds some momentum. The first 2 are like, I'm curious where this is going to go.
Yes.
And each one gets better and better, and it builds on the world and the lore and the characters, and you get attached. It's very well done. It's one of those ones that I'm surprised I liked, to be honest.
Yeah, no, I'm actually enjoying it, and it kind
Yeah.
of bodes well for me. I'm in the same position with, to go back to your question, Discworld, which is
Yeah.
another series that I want to continue in, but it's in the same boat as Dresden. I'm just gonna
Yep. Just pick them up
toss
here
them
and there.
in.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Then the next one I'm going to pick up is Guards, which I've
Okay.
wanted to read for some time. I've read so far. I've read a couple death books. I've read Mort, and I've read Hogfather at Christmas.
Okay.
I've read Small Gods as well, and I read, which is kind of a separate. It's sometimes called a standalone, and I can't remember another one, but yeah, I can't remember. But I want to start fitting in some Discworld as well, because they're fun. They're nice palate cleansers.
Yeah.
They're perfect. I agree with David that you're going to enjoy John Gwynne. So to confirm, you haven't read any John Gwynne yet.
Nothing from him. No.
Okay, I'm going to go back to what Jane said, and you should join me. I'm going to be rereading Faithful and the Fallen this year at some point.
Okay.
You should join me for Faithful and the Fallen. RJ and I are going to read it. This is kind of a low key, down low, like no pressure kind of buddy read. When we're able to, we're going to fit them in. I'm probably going to do the audio since it's a reread for me, but I think they're excellent, and the series just evolves into something kind of special that it's one of RJ and my favorite series, if we can be honest. And some people don't love Malice, and it has some issues and stuff, but the series is worth it. And so if you're curious about John Gwynne, in my opinion, there's a couple entry points, but that would probably be the one for sure. You can also start with
own all of the Faithful.
You can also start with some people start with the sequel trilogy. I wouldn't recommend that, but
okay.
Yeah, I think you're on mute, Colin. If you might be on mute.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can't hear you anymore.
Oh, you can't? Hold on.
Interesting. It's okay. Take your time. Do your thing. I'm going to answer some comments and stuff. Let's see. Hi, child, blah, blah, blah. Also, Joanna was talking about the Clash of Kings prologue. The Clash of Kings prologue is pretty epic. And, oh, you know what? Hang on. Maybe it's me. Hang on.
Can you hear me now?
Can you guys hear me?
I can hear you.
Interesting. Okay. There we go. You know what? My Mac is causing me problems. Siri's doing some stuff. So give me 1 second. I'm going to get rid of this. Not really sure what the hell is going on. Okay. Not sure what happened. All right, we're back to normal. Forget it. So
you can hear me?
We're good. In the background of my Mac, my Siri was like trying to do stuff, and it was trying to answer me. So it thought I was talking to it. Ridiculous. Awesome technology. Fun.
Has Siri read any John Gwynne?
Who?
Has Siri read any John Gwynne?
Siri has not. Siri doesn't know what the hell is happening, to be honest with you. But I was talking about Joanna's. She put out a video talking about the Clash of Kings prologue. Super cool. And actually, Clash of Kings, I'm enjoying a lot more than I thought I was going to be honest.
That's book 2, right?
Book 2. Yeah.
That's my next read.
I'm enjoying it. Like I don't know, because I'm getting to the end of it. I don't know if I'm going to give it a 5-star. I don't know yet. The very end apparently has some momentum, so we'll see.
Okay.
But so far, I don't know if it'll beat Game of Thrones just from a pure enjoyment level, because Game of Thrones I was so excited to read, and there was so much hype, and I was exposed to the world and the characters for the first time. Now I'm like settled in a bit, and I'm enjoying myself. And there's a lot of buildup, and the end of Clash of Kings, a lot of stuff happens. So we'll see. I'm curious if that one lands, but yeah.
Have you watched the show?
So I've watched up to season 6 or something,
Okay.
maybe.
So,
I didn't
so I've
finish the
I've
show.
seen the show too, so I'm not like
Yeah.
completely new to the Game of
Yeah.
Thrones world,
Yeah.
but this is my first read through of it.
Awesome. Yeah. Yeah. Are you gonna try and keep up or catch up with the read along that's happening, or just kind of in your
Yes,
own?
I
Yeah.
think so.
Yeah.
I'm gonna finish Dark Matter, and then I'm
Right.
probably gonna try to fit that next to Clash of Kings in
Yeah.
before I start live ship.
Nice, man. Awesome. Sweet. Yeah, I'm pretty sure guards will be a favorite. A lot. I think I've been sort of saving that because I know that I'm going to enjoy the City Watch or whatever it's called series. So that'll be good. I've been reading Dresden for 2 years. I'm still not caught up. I know, but the nice thing is, and I guess for a lot of people, like once you're caught up with Dresden, like then you're caught up. So it's kind of nice to have those in the background that you can just
I
pull and
almost
play.
don't want to be caught up.
I know. Same. Ben agrees. So Ben and I, and another reason why he's going to be on Fireside Friday. I've been chatting with him for a while. I love his videos. He's an awesome guy, and we have a lot of similar tastes, as Colin, you and I do. So it's kind of exciting
Yeah,
because he's read a ton. He's read a bunch of stuff that I haven't. I can get recommendations from him. You're reading a lot of stuff for the first time that I've kind of read over the last year or two as someone coming back to fantasy. So it's kind of a cool community that way where we can kind of bounce off each other, and it's good times. I like it. All
yeah.
right,
It seems
everyone
like there's
confirming.
always
Perfect.
somebody that hasn't read something or is reading it for the first time, or there's a lot of, I mean, with all these discords and all these channels that are, around nowadays,
It's
there's
tough.
always somebody reading something at the same time, and you can usually find some kind of discourse about the books you're reading, which I think is awesome.
It's fun. So are you in the camp then that appreciates the discussion, or do you tip? I guess you've answered it by putting out YouTube videos and chatting with me here, but do you prefer that to reading on your own? Like, let me put it this way. If you had the opportunity and the time, let's say you weren't a dad with responsibilities and you weren't an adult
Right.
and you could just be a lazy cat on the couch, would you prioritize reading every book with people as a buddy read, or would you prefer to read some just alone, just to let them simmer and just kind of chill low key on your own?
There's there's some that I so it's hard nowadays with, especially with the bigger series that I'm getting into, like Game of Thrones,
Yeah.
The Lord of the Rings. Hadn't read it. It's like impossible not to have heard other people's opinions on these
Right.
books yet.
Right.
And so there is a lot of stuff. I basically have spent the last couple of years just kind of collecting books that I want to get to, and I've really slowed down like my book purchasing because I've acquired a lot of the stuff that I want to get to eventually.
Yep.
So I'm pumping the brakes on that. I think my
Yep.
wife thinks I'm a little
Me,
less crazy
mine
now that
too.
I've
I got a couple years on the shelves, and in fact, what you see on the left and on the right aren't everything. That's not. I have the other room with a couple shelves and stuff too. This is just what I have here. So I'll tell you what happened before I interrupt you more. I'll tell you what happened.
No, you're good.
I started doing YouTube, and I had a little shelf, just a short shelf here with a couple books. Most of them were in the bedroom on some other shelves. And then I was like, you know what? I kind of want to have like a TBR shelf. I want to have one shelf with the books that I want to get to in the next month or two. And so I put up a couple shelves there, and then it just blew up, and then it blew up over here, and now it's fucking everywhere. So it's a slippery slope, man. So I get it.
It is. It really is.
Yeah.
It's a two-edged sword to get kind of back to the booktube's great because there's discussions all the time, and I'm gleaning a lot more. I'm like learning a lot more. I'm thinking about books in a different way, but there's also a lot of books that are virtually impossible to not go into with a preconceived notion,
Yeah.
just because I've
100%.
heard so many people talk about them already.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's some that I have tried to stay away from. I have not watched a lot of Faithful in the Fallen content. I
Okay.
have not watched a lot of Discworld content, but a lot of people that I respect their opinion and seem to fall in line with enjoy those. So there's some that I'm trying to stay away from so I can kind of formulate my own opinion on them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Especially since
Yeah.
I'm doing reviews now, because I don't want to be, not even on purpose, but I don't want to be regurgitating knowledge that
100%.
I heard from somebody else and not even realize that I'm doing it, which I'm sure, I do to an extent anyways, but that's kind of why I was a little nervous to do my first review, because it's hard to formulate
I think
thoughts
you
that
did
aren't
great,
influenced.
by the
I
way.
appreciate that.
I would ask you a question. So number one, would you deliberately go and seek out content on a book that you're about to do a review for, or do you want to do a review completely blind without knowing, how other reviews are done, what they've, focused on, that kind of stuff?
So I think like
Or what
and
will you do going forward?
I've
Yeah.
only done one review. So kind of what my mindset is like, I'm not an academic, right? So
Mm.
like, I can say I'm reviewing books. I'm not reviewing books from an academic standpoint. It's more
Yeah.
just what I got from it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So the only real thing that I decided was I want to touch on themes. I want to touch on characters that stuck out to me. And I want to wait until after I kind of talk about elements of the book to
Mm.
even say whether or not I enjoyed it.
Right. Cool.
Because I don't want the first thing I say after I do my intro to be like, I just read Jade City and I hated it.
Right.
Because then like people
No,
will
no one
kind
cares.
of,
Yeah.
right.
Or they
So
do care. They want to see why you hated it. But I know what you mean, right? Yeah, I know what you
I'd
mean.
rather
For
talk
sure.
about the elements of the book and then say whether or not they worked for me, because just because something didn't work for me might
Yeah.
be a reason that it worked for somebody else.
Yeah.
And I did not watch any reviews on Jade City before I made the video, just because I didn't, like I said, I didn't want to be regurgitating information that other people have already said. I want to try to kind of formulate Colin's own thoughts
Good.
as much
Good.
as I can,
Good. Well, it's working, because Kyle here says, we're awesome. He's at work, but Theo is less cool than Colin. So he just wants to make sure that everyone kind of is aware of that. I'm going to go back to David's question. While you answer this, I'm going to grab a book off my shelf, because I have a lit fic. I believe it's a lit fic queued up for later this year. So you go ahead and answer that. I'm going to find a book.
Interesting.
Got it.
The only thing I might have loosely planned is that I want to read Frankenstein around
Oh,
Halloween time.
so good. It was on my top 5 of last year.
Was
So
it?
good. Yeah, man. Crazy, right?
That's the only
Crazy.
classic that I loosely have planned for now.
Yeah, I think the classic that I want to make sure, so there's two. One is Wuthering Heights, because my wife got it. Someone else said I would actually really enjoy it. I think I'll try and read that. It's short. Read it with my wife. That would be fun. Also, I want to read The Count of Monte Cristo. I think that's my priority classic this year. I also, around for February and for Black History Month and stuff, I was reading Kindred. I got this book here that you might not be. Well, yeah, you can see it. It's called Finding Edward.
Okay.
And it follows I think 2 young Black kids in like Canada, and through academia and through their studies in Toronto. I believe it's based on some real stuff, but I believe it's a literary fiction, and
Okay.
just what they go through growing up. It's just kind of a look into that those issues, right? And
Yeah.
I think I picked up a little bit, or I read a little bit of it. It's really well written, and I'm not sure, but I think the author's Canadian, so there were a couple reasons why I picked it. I can't quite remember off the cuff now, but yeah, that's one that I want to read. And also, my Greek homie John Stamos is releasing a book in October. I'll probably read that too. So there you
Okay.
go. Boom. Those are my like non-fiction, lit fiction classics. Those are the
Yeah.
ones that I'm going to read. Yeah. Reading Lonesome Dove. This month, Lonesome Dove is one that I really want to read. Super
That's
priority.
Larry McMurtry.
Larry McMurtry.
Okay.
Yeah, it's that like Western that people always talk about. So,
Yeah.
Hard for
I
me to get through.
own
Shit.
some Robert McCammon. I have
yeah.
Boy's Life on my Kindle.
Let's read that together. I want to read Boy's Life later this year. 100%.
I have
you read any Robert McCammon?
I either have hold on. I forget if it's Boy's Life or Swan Song. I have one of them.
Okay. Well, get
I'm
the
still
other
down
one
to read. Yeah, I'm still
buckle
down.
up, bro.
I'm down.
Swan Song was one of my top 5s. It might have been my 2 or 3, I don't know, of last year on my top 5 list. Swan Song was epic, and I loved it, and that's why I picked it for the 1-star review reaction list. It was on there. and I
Okay.
had a good time with it. I loved it, man. It was really good. The writing was brilliant, the atmosphere, the descriptions, the imagery. He has a way of describing things that just stick with you. I remember him describing like a weathered old lady's face or something that looked like a dried, like peeled like apple or something, like like an apple core, just like how wrinkly
Yeah.
and stuff she was. I think like stuff like that just like stays with you, and it's a very unique, I wouldn't say writing style, but he just has an ability to create atmosphere and the imagery. I mean, I can picture you. We were talking about not like picturing stuff as much when you read, or not having your
Yes.
imagination necessarily firing. With that one, it's hard to not imagine and picture everything. It's
Okay.
very well done. Yeah.
Well
Yeah.
sold. I know I've people. Mike is one of the people that I left out earlier that I've been following for a long time, and another one of the reasons that I got super into King. And I
Bye,
know that
Mike.
people. See you later, Mike. I will be trying to definitely
Yeah,
tune into your and
we're all
Murphy's.
gonna duck out in about 20 minutes because we're all gonna
Yeah.
go watch Murphy and Mike over on his channel. So go check that out.
Yes.
But yeah.
But I know people were trying to get Mike to read McCammon for a
Yeah, for a
while,
while.
and he ended up
Yeah.
loving it. And
Loves it. Yeah.
so that's why
And he loved Swan Song and Boy's Life. Kevin says Boy's Life is better. I've heard, honestly, Colin, I've heard that a couple times. So
Okay.
I'm thrilled because I started with Swan Song.
But you love
So
Swan Song anyways.
so good. Yeah. I
Okay.
think it's like I don't know if you're comparing to Kevin has opinions about these books too, but if you're comparing to like Stephen King books, like The Stand and It, like are they would people like both of them? Yeah, some people are going to like one more than the other, but I've heard that before for sure. Other
Yeah.
people are reading Wuthering Heights too. Holy shit, maybe I should read this, but don't let the page count fool you. I'm planning on reading Wuthering Heights. Mike said he hopes I enjoy it. Wuthering Heights. So Caitlin is actually the one that put me onto it because she
Okay.
saw it in a book haul that I got Wuthering Heights. Well, I showed it off, but it was one of the small classics that my wife picked up, and I thought I'd show them off because I'm curious about them. And she said it's one of her favorite books of all time. And I was like, and
Wow.
she's like, I think you'll like it. Like, don't think it's like a romance, or don't think it's like a whatever. She took away some of those preconceptions that I had, and she was like, I think you'll really like it. Give it a shot. So
Yeah.
that's what she's saying. It's not a romance. Huge misconception. She's the one who I think nudged me to give it a shot, and I think I will this year.
It's funny, the longer I think it's two things. The older I get and the more I hang around booktube and try different books,
Yeah.
I speak in absolutes much less than I used to.
Right.
Like because I've read romances that I like, and 2 years ago I would have told you I wouldn't like a romance. And like 11/22/63, for all intents and purposes, has a lot of things in it, but it's a romance.
Yeah.
And I loved it. Like, so maybe I do like romances.
It's
I
weird,
don't
right?
know.
Like, because I was having a blast with that book. I thought it was brilliantly written. Hey, what's up, Alex? What's up?
Hey,
Nice
Allie.
to see you. It was brilliant, but then what really got me and what made me shed a tear there was the romance part of it. What do you know? It's a Stephen King book, and that's why some of those 1-star reviews are like, this isn't a horror book. Like, he needs to get back to writing. It's like it's not really a horror book. Like it's not.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
You and I are similar in King. I think I've read like, I don't know, 20 low 20s.
Yeah.
He has like 73, 74 novels. There's
it's
so much I
much.
haven't read yet.
It's too
Like
much.
He's by far my most read author, and still there's so many to read.
It's crazy. Yeah, 11/22/63 has a top 5 ending. I would argue that is true. I think that's true.
Yeah, I agree.
Is No Country for Old Men going to be my next planned McCarthy? Probably not my next planned McCarthy. So he's talking about Cormac McCarthy. I just finished The Road. I've also read Blood Meridian. Very different experiences. Beautifully written. You'll see my review when it comes out, probably on Sunday, hopefully. But I was talking to Baron, who's a huge Cormac McCarthy fan, and he put me on to one of his Southern Gothic novels, different flavor than the two I've already read, and he would recommend Outer Dark or Child of God. So I might be trying one of those. So have you read Cormac McCarthy at all?
I own The Road and I own Blood Meridian.
Bro, read The Road. Watch my review this
Jimmy
weekend, and then read The Road.
Recommended The Road first, and
So
he also recommended to really take my time and seek help or answers
So here's
kind
what
of
I
through
would
the
do.
internet on Blood Meridian.
Here's what I would do. And actually, Caitlin, you're right. Who knew he could write like an epic love story? It was very, very good. Child of God is sus. Okay. Oh shit, really God. Really dark. I'm keen. Yeah, yeah.
Huh.
Outer Dark and Child of God. Brace
Wow.
yourself. Okay, so Baron's steering me into the dark here. What I would say, I would agree with you. I would say read The Road. I think The Road was awesome and accessible and quite beautiful and powerful. And I think you have to be in the right mindset. It's not a pick-me-up book, definitely.
Right. Okay.
But then what I would do is maybe read Blood Meridian, like maybe don't go right into Blood Meridian. Maybe we'll try and find something else together. And then when you're ready or you want to try Blood Meridian, because I think here's the thing: if you really like Cormac McCarthy's writing, and then you want to get kind of weird and kind of like really dark and really violent, then you can go to Blood Meridian. But it's
Okay.
so deep and it's so heavy thematically and philosophically and all that stuff that I ended up watching some videos that really took its time trying to explain stuff. And I watched those as I read certain parts. There's brilliant content on it. So I would agree with that. I would say when you're ready to
Okay.
jump into Blood Meridian, do it when you have time to take your time and watch some content explaining some things, because it can be interpreted in a lot of different ways, but that's the beauty of it. So it's not a book that you can read cover to cover and go, okay, cool. Like that was cool. It's something that
Yeah.
you want to think
Okay.
about as you read. So
I actually, on the
I took my
topic
time
of
with it and I was
Cormac
happy.
McCarthy, my wife and I just about a week ago watched No Country for Old Men.
Really interesting.
I wonder how much of it is taken right from the book, because I noticed like halfway through the movie was really like, it just clicked with me. I was like, babe, there's been no music this entire movie. Think about how crazy that is. Like, and I was so invested in the story. Like, I was like, well, I can't even think of another movie that didn't have any music happening. It was just scenes and dialogue. Like that, it blew
Now
my
that you
mind.
mention it, I think I remember that. And again, it's been years since I've watched that movie. But hearing you say that does remind me that I think I remember something about that, because I think I remember being so into it and hearing all of the sound production.
Yeah.
But like no, like you can hear everything and you're so it's so tense, right?
Yes.
Yeah, it's Cormac McCarthy is a very like poetic writer. There are some passages that read very much like poetry, and so you're gonna get a good sense from The Road. I think
Okay.
whether you like his writing and whether you would want to try. For example, another hot take: I tried Ray Bradbury. I tried Something Wicked This Way Comes. A lot of people love it. I tried it around Halloween. I didn't like it. I thought the prose was flowery. I wasn't in the mood for it. It's
Okay.
not a bad book, not bad writing. Just wasn't in the mood for that flavor. And
Yeah.
so I put it aside. And I think you can judge very quickly whether or not you're going to mesh with McCarthy's writing, because it's not for everybody. And the
Interesting, Alex.
audiobooks are very good. Audiobooks are very good.
Okay.
Oh, that's good to know.
Yeah, that's
Oh,
interesting.
I didn't know that. I did
It
not know that.
almost, that's why I wondered how close it was, because I was like, I've never read it, but it felt
Yeah.
like dialogue being like ripped right out of the book or something. I don't
So
know.
I want to this weekend. I want to try and make time to read The Road. All right, not
Okay.
read The Road. I just watch The Road. I want to see how the movie compares, because I remember watching it years ago. I remember the aesthetic and the atmosphere of the movie, but I don't remember. And again, I never read the book until now, so I had nothing to base the movie off of and how it
Okay.
followed it.
I've never watched The Road or read it.
I would wait to read it, because the book isn't very powerful and quite moving.
Okay.
And as a dad, this might hit you in the feels a little bit. It's gonna hit
So,
deep,
yeah,
for sure.
the end of No Country for Old Men, the movie, I think my wife was like, that was weird. I didn't like that. I think maybe she just wasn't vibing with the bleak ending. And I
Sure.
was like, I'm cool with that.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
sometimes stuff is just like that. And
Yeah.
and I'm like, that's, if there's not a resolution, or if it's just bleak and that's the way it's supposed to be. Like, sometimes I read books because I want to feel bad, because I
Right.
don't,
100%.
you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Or you want to allow yourself to feel something through a book that you can then close the book and not have
Yes.
to necessarily feel in life, right? It's a bit of an
Yes.
escape, but it doesn't have to be. When we say escapism, it doesn't always have to be happy, sunshine and rainbows escapism. It could be escapism into catharsis and a little bit of
Yeah.
like, let me feel how that might feel, or let me get a look into this subject, or whatever. So yeah, he does that very well. The road ended like I'm not going to spoil it, but the road's ending would leave some people being like, okay, like I don't know if I liked that, or I don't know if I would have done it that way. But it's dark and it's bleak, and it's not going to leave everyone satisfied. And I like it. And I actually have on this review coming out this weekend, if everything goes according to plan, I have a bit of a spoiler section at the end where I talk about, and I put a banner up, and I talk about the ending and my interpretation of the book as a metaphor and what I think it means and why I think people should read it. And the ending allows for that interpretation. So if it was an ending that people would prefer, like a nice happy, like, okay, everything makes sense, it wouldn't allow for that interpretation from the reader. But because it ends the way it does, which is not going to satisfy everybody, it allows you to really interpret it and find the meaning in the story and apply it kind of to life. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
So it's good for that. It does what it was trying to do perfectly, but it's not going to be a book for everyone or an ending for everyone. So
which
I'm
I
carrying
think is
the fire.
fine.
We are the good guys, David. We're the good guys. Yeah, it's a great.
Yeah, I'm excited to get to some. There's
so much to read.
Harkening back to the very beginning of our conversation, like I'm never going to read everything I want to read before I leave this earth. There's no way.
No. And actually, I always joke, and when I chat with Mike, he always says, like, he's got more books to, than he can read in his lifetime. And it's because he's old as shit. He's way older than me. So I'm just going to milk it, because he was bashing me earlier, and now he bounced to have his own live stream. So he's getting old, man. And you look at the shelf and you're like, am I going to read these in the next, however, like we'd like to think, but all we can do is chip away at the TBR and add a book here and there when we want to, but it's all we can do. I think that's all any of us can do. I think with that, I think we'll wrap up. We're getting close to the hour. And I know Mike and Murphy are having a big live stream soon. And I think we're going to call it here so that we can do this again sometime and save some stuff to talk about. So I want to thank everybody for joining us. I want to thank you, Colin. I appreciate it. Again, Colin's Corner on YouTube. Go check him out. New channel, new content, really good. And go show him some love. I think that's it. Any closing thoughts?
No, I'm honored that you asked me. Thank you so much for having me on here. This was a blast. It was my first, like I said, it was my first live stream. So
awesome.
This was a lot of fun. I hope to.
Thanks, David. David gave you a sub right on. David's
thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Cool, man. Thanks, Jane. Appreciate you guys.
This was a blast.
That's it, man. Good. I'm happy. Awesome. Well, we'll talk soon. And that's it. Stick around after and we'll chat. Thanks, guys. Thanks for tuning in. Bye, guys.
Have a good night, everyone.